Welcome, Eric, and thanks for making the trek down from Oxford for
Absolutely.
this interview today. Your exhibition, 25 Cent Gods, is inspired by your childhood love of comic books and the superheroes they created. Talk about your experience as a kid consuming these publications and how it ultimately led to your becoming an artist.
So those are fond memories from my youngest days, looking forward to going to Pack's Corner Store on my bicycle to turn the comics rack and find the beloved comics. Spider-Man, like so many, was my first love, as it were, with the comic book world. From that point, children love to draw, and I was no exception. And I drew, only I looked to the comic book, these amazing, muscular, flashy, save the day kind of guys, and I drew, and I really, really enjoyed that. I did it with my buddy as well. There was also, in the comic books, there was also these advertisements, Charles Atlas, the insult that made a man out of Mac, and I was the little tiny towhead, 62-pound blonde kid, and I wanted to be that Captain America, so there was that sort of intrinsic motivation there too. As far as it leading to my becoming an artist or working in the art field, I'm not so sure that that's the case. Kids just draw and draw. However, they did become a very prevalent influence in my work later on, and this show is an excellent example of that. With comic books in particular, and I've never been a Conan kind of fan, despite the Arnold films and all that would come later, but I started out, I was drawing these Conan type characters, and there was one called Zor in particular, and I still have the drawings. But ultimately, you start to create your own comic book characters. In my case, my leading character was Desister. Everything ends in an OR. Back in the 70s, it's, or something, Zoror. So it was Desister because my character stopped time, desist, stop. So, drawing all of that. Second part of that question.
And when did you decide to pursue an artistic career?
Okay. So interestingly, in terms of the artistic career, that didn't come until, much later. There was, as I got into college and that sort of thing, and into high school even, I was thinking about being a fighter pilot, or actually the love of medicine. I was fascinated by medicine, and the superhero comic books gave me the love of anatomy, which sort of translated into my wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon. And art was sort of after that, the third place also ran kind of thing. So there were reasons I didn't become a fighter pilot, and there are reasons I didn't become an orthopedic surgeon. But here was art. I still love to draw, so I said, well, let's give it a shot. Yes, so when you're doing medical illustration, the physician is looking for very specific things, and as you said, very accurate representations. Superheroes, particularly early on, Jack Kirby's work and so on, they weren't particularly accurate, but they were engaging. Nevertheless, yes, the superheroes push me in that direction. The love of anatomy and physiology, the questioning of how do all these muscles work, that led to my pursuing the medical illustration. At this point, when I do superheroes, Captain Marvel up there in the sky being a good example of that, I tend to take liberties so that accuracy that I learned in my second master's in the medical illustration, I take liberties with the superhero because you can, and that's part of the fun of it. A familial link throughout all my work is this sort of sense of nostalgia. So I have Captain Marvel here, but most people today think there's a problem because Captain Marvel's a woman, right? Well, once upon a time, Captain Marvel's a guy. So, I know all this, the older superhero stuff, there's this nostalgia with it. And that sort of led directly to the distressing of the work. A thought of nostalgia, and I just felt aesthetically, visually, all of these were created with brand new stuff from Lowe's. Some people have asked me, did you buy these and repurpose them? Absolutely not. Every nail, every board cut, every paint stroke was me. And I just think and people have asked, which I love, did you get these from a Carnival or someplace? And that adds to this sort of positive baggage of the piece, a history of the piece. And again, I had a love of Carnival type things from way back, Geneva on the lake. So these were bright and shiny and perfect, and I just felt that they benefited from giving this sort of forced history. And I think it's paid off.
And so, in the case of the striker and cornhole game, were you like sanding the surfaces or scuffing them up intentionally?
Oh yeah, so that was the fun part, because 5-pound sledgehammers, chains, dragged them down the street. I mean, I did all of that. Yes, sandpaper, and a lot of people that watch me throughout this process, they cringe when because there were these nice paintings and things, and here I go, wham, smash, and I'd break pieces off, and it was a good time. So you have this ongoing love affair with superheroes. And then also early on, we had a cottage at Lake Erie. And near that cottage was a place called Geneva on the Lake, which is still there. But at that time, so we're talking early 70s, mid 70s, the strip there, Geneva on the Lake, it had a magical atmosphere. There was in particular a haunted house, and there was a head shop, although I didn't know what a head shop was at the time, with black lights and all that cool stuff. And it was, the atmosphere was just electric. And it's this kind of feeling you get at a carnival. And they had street carnivals as well. So I decided, well, I'll take this love of superheroes and I'll combine it with sort of the interactivity, the high striker, putting your face through the specter, combine those things and we could have something pretty fun. And with my work, I really like to have a visual intrigue and interactivity if I can. It brings the viewer in and allows them to participate. The cornhole here, for example, it's just fun.
What are your plans for continuing this work in the future?
To be determined. When you make work this big, it has intrinsic problems, storage, so forth. So in terms of working on this scale or larger, I may have to put a sabbatical on that for the time being. I'm running out of room in my living room and my garage. And I probably will revisit some of the things at Kent State when I was there, a cartoon strip called Time Flies. I may visit the 2D world for a little while until I can sort of figure out what to do with large-scale sculpture or what direction to go with it. Without a doubt, superheroes will continue to influence my work, I think. They did even in my cartoon strip. Time Jumper is a superhero-ish type of guy that travels through time, but he does it with a whoopee cushion. So I'm enjoying the fact that these are up here and that people get to see them, and hopefully I'll get to make more in the future.